Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. Continuing on with NFL Week 3, Eagles, Saints. Let's go.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, we got Philly on the road in New Orleans for this one. Saints laying 2.5 points at home now. This line opened up as Saints plus 2.5. Some serious line movement in this one. Total sitting at 49.5. Let's take a look at these pie charts that I don't trust at all. According to this data, bets coming in on New Orleans, money coming in on New Orleans. So action definitely coming in on the Saints side. And I mean, that would make sense. The line has moved 5 whole points. It even touched 3. All right, so I want to start with kind of a weird stat here. And I was talking about this last week in the Saints-Cowboys video. I said, I like Derek Carr to have a good game because he plays much better against teams that have good pass rushes. Now, this is pretty thin, but hear me out. The Saints last year, their passing numbers against teams with top 10 pass rushes, they averaged 221 passing yards per game, over a 50% success rate, 7.36 yards per attempt, and a 108.75 passer rating. Very nice looking numbers against defenses with top 10 pass rushes. Same goes for their offense as a whole. They averaged 28.7 points per game, over 5 yards per play, a plus 17.33% DVOA rating. Their offensive numbers were great across the board against defenses with a top 10 pass rush. And if you remember last week, we were talking about Derek Carr's time to throw numbers. He gets the ball out so fast that these defenses that rely on getting to the quarterback are maybe thrown a bit off balance. Again, it's kind of just a theory, maybe pretty thin, but hear me out. The Philadelphia Eagles do not have a good pass rush. Here are their numbers from last year: 23rd in blitz rate, 13th in pressure rate, 21st in adjusted sack rate. They're off to a pretty similar start this year. They're 20th in blitz rate, 22nd in pressure rate, 27th in adjusted sack rate. So the Eagles are looking like they're going to have a below average pass rush again. Look at the Saints' passing and offensive numbers against bottom 10 pass rushes. About the same passing yards per game, yards per attempt, way down. Success rate, down. Passer rating, way down. Look at the Saints' offensive production as a whole. 21.2 points per game against bottom 10 pass rushes, as opposed to over 28 points per game against top 10 pass rushes. Yards per play, way down. Offensive DVOA rating goes from plus 17% to minus 17.9%. So no question, the Saints' offensive production, much better, significantly better against top 10 pass rushes. They don't perform as well against teams that don't pressure the quarterback. Again, that's thin, but it's a start. Now, we also have to take into consideration that this is a completely different Saints offense. Clint Kubiak is running things now, and since he's taken over this year, the Saints offense is the best in football right now, statistically. First in yards per play, second in success rate, first in EPA, first in yards per pass attempt, 12th in passing success rate, 11th in yards per carry, second in rushing success rate. I mean, on paper, the Saints have been the most impressive offense in the NFL so far. Derek Carr looks great. 76.9% completions, 11.4 yards per attempt is nuts, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a passer rating above 142. Now, something I will say about Derek Carr, he's done essentially all of his damage against zone coverage so far this year. 279 of his passing yards against zone coverage, 62 against man coverage, and it makes sense if you look at his opponents. Week 1, he played Carolina. They're 6th in zone coverage frequency. Week 2, they played Dallas. Remember, this is a Mike Zimmer-led Cowboys defense. It's not Dan Quinn anymore, and the Cowboys run a ton of zone coverage. They're actually 2nd in zone frequency. Now he plays Philadelphia, where we're expecting to see man coverage. They're 22nd in zone coverage frequency, and I expect it to be even lower than that. Remember, Vic Fangio is here now. Vic Fangio is coaching the Eagles defense now. Last year with Miami, he was 3rd in man coverage frequency. It's Vic Fangio. We know we're going to see man coverage. So look, I'm not saying that means Derek Carr is all of a sudden going to stop producing, but I will say it's going to be the first time he's throwing the ball against man coverage this season. Now, it's the Eagles defense, and it wasn't good the second half of last year. It's definitely not looking great. They're actually 31st in yards per play allowed this year, 22nd in success rate, 29th in EPA, struggling to stop the run more so than the pass, but just struggling across the board here. Now, something I will point out, last week's game, Monday night's game against the Falcons, a little bit, okay, if you look at Kirk Cousins' final stat line, it looks okay. I mean, it looks pretty good. But keep in mind, if Saquon Barkley catches the ball, look at the right side of this graphic. This is what Kirk Cousins' stat line would have looked like if Saquon Barkley catches the ball. 15 of 23, 171 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt. So, I mean, you got to pay attention to stuff like that because football's a very volatile sport, and one play could mean night and day difference in terms of the final box score. So, yes, Kirk Cousins' final stat line looks pretty good. That last drive was impressive. I loved it. I was on the Falcons, and I also hate the city of Philadelphia. But if Saquon Barkley catches the ball, his stat line looks completely different. The problem with the Eagles' defense Monday night was more so stopping the run than stopping the pass. Sure, in the last drive, they couldn't stop Kirk Cousins, but the entire game was more so the run. Falcons, 28 carries, 152 rushing yards, 5.4 yards per carry. Bijan was carving them up. Then Tyler Algier came in, and he was carving them up as well. They couldn't stop the run. So are we just expecting New Orleans to do the same thing and just rip it up on the ground? I'm not so sure. I mean, is it possible that the Saints offensive line is this much better in 1 year's time? I have to think there's regression coming in this department. I mean, maybe they hit on Fuaga. They drafted a left tackle. They brought in Lucas Patrick, but Lucas Patrick wasn't particularly good last year. Maybe Trevor Penning moving over to right tackle in his second year. Maybe he's improved greatly. No question, I'm on board with the Saints offensive line is better, maybe even much better this year. But this is crazy. Last year, the Saints were 31st in adjusted line yards, 15th in yards before contact. This was a bottom 10 run blocking offensive line. Now they're 1st and 6th. That just seems like way too extreme of a jump, and there has to be regression coming in this department. Now, to be fair to those of you betting the Saints here, the Eagles' defensive front has been getting blown off the ball. 31st in defensive line yards, 25th in yards before contact. But they played the Packers and then the Falcons. Two offensive lines I expect to be very good this year. I would consider the Saints the worst offensive line the Eagles have seen so far this year. Look, they're probably going to get run on. It's the Eagles' defense, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles' defense takes a step forward here and actually does a decent job keeping the Saints from running the ball here. Now we flip it over to the other side and we look at the Saints' defense, which looks excellent. I mean, 4th in yards per play allowed, 2nd in success rate, 2nd in EPA, great against the pass, elite against the run, which doesn't even make sense because they were so bad against the run last year and didn't make any changes. But anyway, let's take a look at it. Week 2 against Dallas. Defensive effort might have been a little bit deceiving. The Cowboys did have 353 yards in the game. They only punted once. So it's not like the Saints defense was making a bunch of stops here. I mean, the Cowboys offense just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Dak threw a couple interceptions. It was a good defensive game. I'm not trying to take any credit away from the Saints here, but the Saints offense won that game a lot more so than the Saints defense did. When the Cowboys had the ball, for the most part, they were moving it. Let's not forget that this Saints run defense was not good last year. They allowed 4.4 yards per carry. That was 22nd in the NFL. They were 25th in run defense DVOA. And this Eagles rushing attack, it's going to be good this year. Look at what Philly did on the ground against the Falcons Monday night. 37 carries, 186 yards, 5 yards per carry. That was against the Falcons that might have one of the best run defenses in the NFL. The Eagles have been waiting for an opportunity to show everyone how good their offensive line is, and in my opinion, this is the perfect spot. I think they're going to run all over the Saints. Remember, the Saints had a bad run defense last year, and look at their depth chart. They didn't really do anything to make it better. They brought in Willie Gay, which should help it a little bit, but as a whole, I'm not buying the Saints as a top 10 run defense. Maybe on the offensive side with Clint Kubiak, if you want to sell me on the Saints offense being top 10 this year, I can get on board with that. I don't think that's crazy, but I doubt the Saints are going to go from one of the worst run defenses in the NFL to one of the best without making any major changes. This Eagles offense has looked pretty good so far this year. I know they only finished the game with 21 points against the Falcons, but they were moving the ball pretty easily, scored a bunch of points on the Packers in Brazil the week before that. Jalen Hurts in the passing attack, 11th in yards per attempt, 6th in success rate, 6th in EPA. I think the Eagles are going to establish the run and do whatever they want offensively in this game, which is why as soon as this number hit 3, I took it. I'm on the Eagles +3 here. This just looks like your classic 2 weeks into the season overreaction from the NFL fan base. I mean, think about it. Last week, I said I thought Derek Carr was going to score points on the Cowboys defense in my video. The comments were calling me crazy. You were crazy if you even considered taking 6.5 points with the Saints. Now you're crazy by taking 3 with the Eagles against the Saints. I mean, the Eagles were entering the season the team that most of us had picked to be the first or second best team in the NFC. Now they're underdogs of a full field goal based on 2 games. It just seems like the perfect spot to fade the overreaction. Also, Derek Carr thrown against man coverage for the first time this season. We all know Derek Carr's good to make a mistake or two. Could see an interception or 2 in this game. I think the Eagles win outright. I'm on Eagles +3, but I honestly like them to win. I'm not sure if you can still get a 3 or not. If you shop around, maybe you can find one. But I'd still take the Eagles at 2.5. So I'm on the Eagles on this one. Birds up. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, if you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. So head over to the website and sign up if you're interested. Let's have ourselves a nice week 3 here. Live shows Saturday morning, 10 a.m. up to kickoff for college football, 11 a.m. up to kickoff for NFL Sundays. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a good one. Bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.